Let's talk about 3 books I think are overhyped, 3 I think are underhyped, and 3 I think are appropriately hyped. Underhyped first today. First up for underhyped books, we've got The Unmaking of June Farrow. I don't see this talked about very often, and it's such an incredible and unique story. It follows June Farrow and the mysterious curse that's haunted the women in her family for generations. There's slow burn romance, magical realism. It's very whimsical and intriguing. I think a lot of fantasy lovers would really enjoy this. Next, we've got Sunday Morning by Jewel E. Ann. This is such an underrated romance book. It was one of my favorites last year. Forbidden romance set in the 80s between a preacher's daughter and her boyfriend's older brother. An amazing coming of age story. It's witty, it's spicy, but there's also a lot of emotional depth that really caught me off guard. It's on Kindle Unlimited and it's the first in the series. The second one's amazing as well. Lastly, in underhyped, we've got the 4th book in the Magnolia Park series, Daisy Hates the Great Undoing. There's 5 books total in the series and I love every single one and every piece of the journey, but there's something about this book specifically that is so captivating. I feel like there's a lot of other people that love The Great Undoing as much as I do, but I just don't feel like we hear about it enough. So if you decide to read this series, which I highly recommend, you really have book 4 to look forward to. Now for the 3 overhyped books. If you disagree with me, that's okay. This was just based on my experience. I don't necessarily dislike all of these. I just feel like they had too much hype. This one's always controversial, When the Moon Hatched. For me, this book was very overhyped. I really didn't enjoy the fact that I had to check a glossary to constantly decode and understand what was going on. It's a little bit too long. It's just not for me. The Veiled Kingdom. I did not dislike this book. I actually had a really fun time reading this book. However, for a fantasy book, it's too surface level. We needed a lot more depth and plot put into it. I also don't like the way this series is being written. The books are being cut off in really awkward spots and just calling it the end of the book when I think that they would be better off making these longer fantasy books. It had so much potential. I like the plot, but it needed more depth and I just don't like that it's being cut so abruptly and kind of a money grab to buy the next book. Lastly, for overhyped, we've got The Things We Never Got Over. I didn't totally hate this book. I kind of had fun while I was reading it. However, it was way too long and the MMC was a little too immature. It had potential and I didn't hate it. I do think it's a little overhyped in the online book space. And for 3 books I think are appropriately hyped, starting off with one of my all-time favorites, The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. You have heard a ton about this book. You've seen it everywhere. It's for a good reason. This takes place during World War II in German-occupied France. It's a story of 2 sisters and their different journeys that they go on. It will absolutely gut you, but it will piece you back together as well. It was such a beautiful insight and perspective into this time in history, and this is what started my love of historical fiction, so I think it is worth all the hype. The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This book just came out. If I could give it more than 5 stars, I would. I know it's going to make it into my top books of the entire year. This is a drama-filled figure skating romance that's written in a way that's like a documentary that's taking place and a first-hand account back and forth at the same time. Audio production of this is out of this world, like the best audiobook I've ever listened to. Lastly, for appropriately hyped, we have Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I am obsessed with this duology. It's a young adult fantasy romance of a game of cat and mouse between witch and witch hunter. It's dark, it's whimsical, it's full of magic. The writing style is so captivating and it just has this special sparkle about it. This is my favorite fantasy book that I read last year. I also read Rebel Witch, which is releasing this month and is amazing as well. This duology has my heart. It's worth all the hype.